on the News Channel 5 network. This is OpenLine.
Hello everyone, welcome to OpenLine. Big show tonight, talking about an issue that a lot of people are very focused on, very interested in. We are talking about marijuana. Could Tennessee legalize recreational marijuana, the recreational use of marijuana? Other states have, and there's a bill in the Tennessee legislature that would do just that here. Now again, we're not talking about medical marijuana. That's also been something that's been debated in this state. We've had people on this show talking about it. What we're talking about now is recreational, the recreational use of marijuana. Should it be legalized? One state senator says yes. She says legalize it, then tax it. And that would mean a lot of money for a lot of different things in this state, but of course some people have concerns. We are happy to have with us State Senator Raumesh Akbari, Democrat from Memphis.
Yes. Thank
you for being here.
Happy to be here.
You've just flown in from Washington, D.C.
Yeah, it's been a long day.
So, all right, well, thank you for coming on. Now, I'm going to have you explain your bill.
Okay.
First of all, what do you think the chances are of this passing in Tennessee?
Well, I think that it's going to be a little difficult, obviously. Tennessee is one of those states, it seems, for these type of policies, it takes a little bit longer for us to move forward. But I think that we're going to generate a good conversation. And so that's really the plan, and just kind of see where we go this year and what we need to build on for future years.
And what does your bill do? What is your bill?
So essentially it will legalize recreational marijuana. If you look at Illinois, which is literally a 2-hour drive away or 2-hour possibility away, you can use and purchase marijuana. So it's going to legalize marijuana. A percentage of it will be taxed. So 12%, it will have a 12% tax on it. And parts of that will go to infrastructure, it will go to education, and it will go to the general fund. So if we're talking about ways to help fund our state, especially in areas where we have historically underspent, like infrastructure and like education, this is a great way to do it. Because the bottom line is people are already using these drugs. So why not regulate and tax it?
And what are some of the I guess restrictions with your bill? I guess there's an age and places where it can be sold, or what are some of the restrictions?
Yeah, so primarily you cannot purchase it if you're not over the age of 21. We're not trying to put this in the hands of children. Just like you look with cigarettes, they've recently moved it up to 21 before you can purchase it. Otherwise, I mean, I think it might be some restrictions on where you can purchase it as far as proximity to a school, but otherwise it's pretty straightforward, pretty open. Really just a legalization across the entire state.
How much money do you think it would mean for the state of Tennessee?
I think it would mean a lot. If you look at a state like Colorado, where it is added up to a $1 billion infusion into their state government's budget every year. That's a big deal because they have a budget similar to Tennessee. I think right now for our projected next budget year, we're looking at a $40 billion budget. So if you have a $1 billion raise every year, that's a big deal.
Is it okay? What are the arguments that you hear against it? I mean, I hear that it's a gateway drug, that it will open the door. Yeah, there are people that don't want their kids to have even greater access to it.
Yeah.
They don't want the government sanctioning some drug that could, I guess, be a gateway drug.
Yeah.
What are some of the concerns you hear?
Our primary concern comes from law enforcement. They're not going to support it because currently, right now, it is illegal according to the federal government, even though different states have made it legal within their own boundaries. And so they're kind of going to this, looking at the federal drug schedule and the fact that this will not be declassified as a scheduled drug. So that's a big one. But then also, certain communities, they're concerned that, like you said, it will be a gateway drug. But to that I say, listen, people are able to drink alcohol at 21, and a lot of times they're doing it even earlier. And that's where we've actually seen real tragedy, where you have folks who are driving drunk. You have folks who are overdosing on alcohol. I don't know that there's been a reported case where someone has died from complications from using marijuana or from an overdose on marijuana. So I think it's giving an alternative.
You're the sponsor on this.
Right.
How many other people have said, I'm with you, I support you?
Well, okay, since the bill dropped, I've gotten so much feedback from Tennesseans, just super excited about it, whether they live in my district or in Middle or East Tennessee. And it's been a wide range from Democrat to Republican. Like, it really seems to see no color. It's not black or white, it's green.
It's not black or white or green. Okay, good. That's
right,
good.
But it's just been a tremendous amount of support. Even my own family members.
I mean in the state legislature.
Oh,
Is there anyone who has signed on as a co-sponsor, you know, in the House. I guess you have to have a sponsor in the House,
Yeah, we
right?
do have a sponsor in the House. It's the Minority Leader, Karen Camper. Successful bills are bills working on bills bipartisan coalition. If it's not bipartisan, it's not going to get out just because of the numbers that we have.
It's a heavily Republican legislature.
Yes.
There are Republicans that support medical marijuana.
Yes.
Right? And that hasn't passed either.
It hasn't, but it seems to be moving forward a lot. With a lot more progress than it has in previous years. So I still think it's worth generating a discussion. If you look at the Tennessee lottery, it took 30 years for that bill to pass. So we're not saying, oh, we're going to be disappointed if it doesn't move forward this year, but at least we're bringing a really necessary conversation to the forefront.
Is this the first year then?
It's the first year I've carried it. Now, there have been legislators that have carried it about recreational and medicinal for years. But this is the first year that I've kind of gotten involved in it.
And the fact that you're carrying it, is it different? Has it changed in some way than the way it was presented in the past?
Well, I think our difference is that we are asking for a percentage of the, we're asking for it to be taxed, and those percentages to go towards education and infrastructure. So it's more than just a legalization bill. It's also a bill to help fund our state. It's also a bill that's going to help put farmers back to work. Because if you look at it, I don't know if you've been keeping up with it, but our soybean farmers have been decimated from these tariffs that have been placed by the federal government. We want our farmers to get to work so they don't have to rely on subsidies from the government and the proposed subsidies from the state. So it's different in that sense that I think the environment is a little different, but also the tax that will go towards infrastructure and education.
This argument, and now we're already getting a lot of calls. We'll start taking calls here in a moment. But this argument that it's the federal government considers it illegal, and so we as a state shouldn't go against the federal government. What do you say to that?
I say that 33 other states have legalized or decriminalized marijuana in some capacity, whether a straight decriminalization, recreational, or medicinal. So it's time for Tennessee to get on board and not get left behind. If you look at any statistics from the FBI about where marijuana has actually grown, Tennessee is always on the top of that list, between 1 and number 5 as far as top growers. So,
really?
Yeah.
So Tennessee is a big grower of marijuana.
Yeah, we're a big grower, and people are consuming it as well, illegally. So let's try and get rid of this notion that it's criminal and try and help tax, regulate, and fund our state.
How did this bill come to you? How did you come to carry this bill?
Well, really, I just started looking at what Tennesseans want, right? Vanderbilt released a poll in our interim between sessions where it said 65% of people in Tennessee approve some form of legalization of marijuana. And I think that number is pretty high. So it's a way to try and kind of, hey, we hear what you're saying and we're going to work on it. Plus my constituents. I mean, I represent a district in Memphis, downtown, parts of South Memphis, Southwest Memphis, and I've heard from my constituents. And lastly, when I looked at the cost of really incarceration, we're at $1.1 billion now. A lot of folks that are incarcerated now are for low-level drug offenses, whereas if they were in another state, it would be completely legal.
What is the state that's closest to Tennessee? Is it Illinois? The state that's closest to Tennessee that has legalized it?
Okay, so Illinois, as far as recreational, Arkansas has medicinal, and I think they just went online this year. They established a commission, they work through rules and regulations. So when you look like where I live in Memphis, you just cross the Mississippi River and you're in Arkansas. But Illinois is the closest, and Colorado is not too far from that. It's a quick flight away.
And what is your time frame? I mean, maybe it won't pass this year. Do you think, what is realistic here? Could it pass? You're right, states around us are doing this. I mean, I would have thought this wouldn't happen anytime soon, but it's happening in some states all around us. What do you think is realistic, I guess, here in Tennessee?
Well, I think that the medicinal marijuana piece really has bipartisan support at this point. I don't know if it has enough legislators on the Republican side, but the bill that has kind of gotten a lot of attention for medicinal marijuana is sponsored by a Republican in the House and the Senate. So I think the conversation has already shifted pretty dramatically in the last couple of years. So I anticipate moving forward in the next couple of years, there will be a significant change. And then also, I forgot about Missouri. Missouri is super close to Tennessee as well. I mean, when we talk about downturns in our income and in our revenue, this is an easy way to raise funds for the state, period.
What do you say to the law enforcement person who is opposed to it? And I guess address their concerns. And what do you say if they come up to you and say, I don't want this, and a lot of people are going to listen to that. It seems like if you shift that opinion, that's a big shift.
Yeah, that's huge. I remember a couple of years ago when they had a decriminalization bill, law enforcement walked around with a baggie with 17 marijuana cigarettes in it, and they said, this is an ounce of marijuana. It's not as little as you think. And that had a tremendous impact. But what I say to them is, listen, your resources are already strained. We're talking about a substance that is legal in so many states, and why don't we free up your budget so you can go after the crimes that we really are afraid of, people who really are putting themselves and our community in danger, and let these low-level drug offenses that are really crowding up your dockets, crowding up your jails, let that fall to the wayside.
All right, I'm interested. We're going to go to the phones now. Mike, we're going to go to Mike on line 1, and then I guess give me the other names here. But let's start with Mike. Hello, Mike.
Hey.
Go right ahead.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. What's on your mind?
Well, basically, I'm 67 years old, and I've been smoking weed since I've been 18. Yeah, I'm not addicted to heroin or any of the other drugs. To me, pot wasn't a gateway drug. It was a drug that actually relaxed me. Yeah, I have anxiety and ADHD, and if I smoke it, I'm relaxed and can deal with things a lot better than taking, say, Xanax or something, which has a real potential for abuse. And I agree with what I've heard about we have so much money spent in jails on just somebody having an ounce or something, and here this county's suffering or the state is suffering, and here we could come in, legalize it, even just medically legalize it for things, and be able to help our state with extra tax and income that's now going to criminals instead of where it should be going to the state, because people are going to smoke whether or not it's legal or not. And I do appreciate that y'all are doing this.
Sure.
Because people need to know about this, that not everybody's an addict because they smoked pot.
All right, thank you. There is a supporter.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, I agree. It makes sense. It's not this gateway drug. I think that's something that was kind of pushed and is really outdated, that marijuana is going to lead to you being a heroin or a crack addict. So yeah. And if you look at those who are addicted to prescription drugs, when I sat on a task force that the speaker put me on a couple years ago talking about medicinal marijuana, and we had a veteran come in with a suitcase this big full of really heavy narcotics that he'd been prescribed. He said that he could put that aside because he was able to use medicinal marijuana, which he had to go to another state, and he wanted to stay in Tennessee, and it helped get him off of all those drugs. And when we have this major opioid problem in Tennessee, why not try something that has not been proven to be addictive?
The first state to legalize marijuana was it Colorado?
Recreationally, yeah.
So what lessons have we learned? What would you use in your argument that we have learned from Colorado, and what might be used to argue against it that people have gotten from Colorado?
Right. So I think that probably against it maybe is people driving under the influence, and I think that applies when you're talking about alcohol or any type of something that will kind of alter your behavior, even with prescription drugs. Now, in support of it, again, Colorado has been able to seriously boost up their budget. I think it accounts for maybe 6% of their budget, which is a big deal.
Wow.
Also, they've made so much that they've been able to give some of it back. It also, and this was pretty important because Tennessee is a big tourism state, their tourism has gone up because people have traveled to Colorado specifically because it is legal. And I have a couple of friends who've actually moved there because of that. So
really?
Yeah, they're from Memphis, 2 guys.
All right. Tom, are you there on line 2, Tom?
Yes, I am. Thank you. And I don't know the lady's name, but I want to thank her for being on here. This is very important. And I've been smoking for 52 years. And you said something a while ago about the gateway to drugs. Well, sir, back in my days in the 60s and 70s, yes, there was LSD, mescaline, there's heroin like that. I tried it, yes. That wasn't my way of things to doing. I did not like to drink. And, well, I smoked pot during the end of Vietnam. And I see nothing wrong with it. And I'm like the lady said, well, go. The Tennessee will make so much money off of this. They could work with their medical for the elderly people, the help for the elderly people, their schooling. And if they legalize it for medical marijuana, your pharmaceutical companies are eventually going to get involved in this, and they'll take over, and then they're going to be the one making the money instead of the state. So if the state will make it recreational, and they can put the 12-cent patch or whatever on it, and you're going to make $50 to $60 million a year off of it, just like Illinois is just now recreational.
All right. So you support this. Bottom line, you support this 100%. You're 100% behind this.
I'm like I say, I've done it and I've been around it, and I went and y'all said something about going to prison, or jail and stuff.
Right.
I went 3 years. I had less than 3 little joints and spent 3 years. They paid $72, $73 a day to house me. And then plus I got mad at them and spent about $40,000, made them do surgery. So look at all the money I put out just for $2. At that time, that was about $2 worth of marijuana. But here's the next thing.
Okay, one more thing.
If you don't legalize it, people still going to get it no matter what, and the money's going to go over in another country, in Mexico and everywhere else. And people's going to lose.
Okay. All right. What do you think of all he said there?
I mean, I agree. When you talk about the high cost of incarceration and sending someone to jail for that period of time, again, for a product that is legal in another state, and then also people are going to use it anyway. So why not regulate it, put some safety measures in place, and also tax it so that the state can benefit?
Now, based on that argument, does that mean that in 5 years we're going to be talking about the next drug to legalize?
I don't think so, because there hasn't been this massive nationwide movement for, I mean, marijuana has been a discussion for a long time. I don't think that I've heard anywhere where people are saying we should legalize heroin or we should legalize, cocaine. I don't think that's been a part of the discussion. Also, if you look at the scientific research around marijuana, particularly for medicinal marijuana, it's actually being propped up and supported by institutions, unlike these other illicit drugs.
Well, guess what? We have a lot of calls. And we have a few lines open. We have 5 lines open. If you want to call in, there's a number, 615-737-PLUS. 615-737-7587. We want to hear your thoughts. We are talking with State Senator Raumesh Akbari from Memphis, Democrat. She is sponsoring a bill that would legalize recreational marijuana. 12% would go to the state. 12% tax on cannabis products. Take a break. Be back right after this.